So I have this first layer dried. I wanted to say I've played with this color enough and other watercolors to have a good sense of just what sort of variety you can get with this one paint, depending on the amount of water in it and depending on the intensity of layers that you create. And so I'm familiar with a lot of these. A lot of these have multiple layers of paint is how I build things up. And that is partly to say that one of the reasons for doing this building up is because it's pretty tricky to just nail the exact value that you're after on the first try, because it will dry different. It will dry lighter. Sometimes it's easy to get too much dark paint, and then you find yourself wanting to lighten things up, and that's pretty tricky with watercolor. Hey, that's my number 8. I wanted my number 12. So I'm getting plenty of water in my brush, sort of touching that pile of concentrated paint. It is tricky because it looks pretty dark. Obviously that looks dark, but I know that it's watery and it won't be that dark when it's on watercolor paper. Once again, I could sort of test it, but like I said, even that can be sort of a little bit tricky. What I will typically do is just start painting in the shape that I know I'm going to paint, which this time is now the next biggest, this rectangle. I'm not sure what I'm saying, but I'm going to use the same approach, and as I paint and look, I can adjust. If it seems too dark, I can just bring in some more water and right here on the paper. So I'm going to see how this looks, and that looks okay. I hope that was in frame. If not, you'll see me do very similar things in subsequent videos. So once again, just the same idea, but I'm layering across the existing lighter layer of paint. And because I'm using a soft brush, and because I'm using a light touch, and because I'm using watercolor that's, even though it's a little bit more concentrated, it's still very watery, and so I can keep coming back in and adding a little bit of paint and color like that. And as long as I'm not shoving the brush down really hard, the any existing paint in the first layer that I might reactivate won't create an obnoxious stripe. I think this is a really tricky thing about watercolor to learn. I know it took me a long time to kind of get this idea that there's really this much water to get the paint moving and tilting so that the paint is mixing itself because of gravity. I just made a thirsty brush there. Something I see people do that doesn't work so well is sometimes when you're thinking of a thirsty brush, you think that holding it sort of sideways and dabbing it like this would be the most effective approach, but that doesn't work nearly as well as just holding it like the tip, like a writing implement, because you're trying to soak all that water straight up. If you do it like this, it sort of comes up and goes back, and so there's that. Woo! And now I'm going to address the next smaller size shape, and that's going to include everything except this one, this furthest hill back there. Mix up some more. I'll do this a little bit quick because I'm not sure how long this video is going to last. So just plenty of paint, and going to the next shape. That's everything except the sky, which is white and untouched, and the first layer, which is the light watery gray. Coming in and defining this edge and trying to get that bead of pooling paint sort of at an even level, so I can then just keep bringing it down like it was just a big old swatch. Might be getting low on paint, so I may have done what you will likely do plenty of times in your painting career, and that's not mix quite enough to finish the shape you want to finish. I'm going to try to make this stretch, but this is where you're going to be tempted to push the brush harder so that the paint comes out. And while on one hand that makes sense, on the other what it will do is reactivate the color that's already under there, and it will start making stripes and start giving it that subtle, stripy, overworked appearance. So that's good. It's sort of a fun little natural. As this is tipped, so some of this color is pooling down here, which is fine. Actually, it's kind of nice. So it'll be just a slight gradient down here at the bottom. It's not enough watery color that I have to worry about picking it up, because it will create a back run. If there's too much water there and I leave it, that's what happens. I have a couple examples of those. I'll pull that out for the next video. Okay, I'm going to let those dry and be back soon.